The episode begins with several satellites flying around the Earth in space. A scientist informs their leader, Dr. Lyle Getz, that they have hacked all the satellites, and the satellites are under his command. A younger scientist walks to Lyle and says he was running some numbers on the frequencies from the satellites. He says the frequency will wipe out every human on the planet if it is activated, and says there is no defense against it. Lyle says the scientist is correct as he takes off his mask and asks Lyle if they will get wiped out along with everyone else. Lyle says they will die as he suddenly pulls out a gun and shoots the scientist off the platform and onto the ground. He begins to shoot the other scientists as they try to run, but they are unable to escape, and he knocks all of them down. Lyle then reveals himself to be a Skrull and says he's doing what is written in their prophecy. Meanwhile, an agent walks onto the Damocles base and some men are working on the ship. An agent named Clay Quartermain walks with some other agents in the helicarrier, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s flying base of operations. A fellow S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Maria Hill sees Clay and the other agents walk past and stands up because she suspects they are up to no good. A strange device is placed in the Avengers mansion, and Captain America places another device in a room beneath the building. He gets into the elevator and his eyes turn green, indicating that he isn't who we think he is. The mysterious agent on the Damocles base knocks out some agents as he gets onto the ship's power source. He then hacks into the systems, and a strange countdown begins. Susan Storm walks into the Baxter building, which is the home to the Fantastic Four, and she begins typing on the building's main computer. The strange countdown suddenly begins as she types. Maria Hill walks to Agent Clay and calls his name, but he doesn't respond. Clay suddenly hacks into the helicarrier system and overrides it. Maria asks him what he did, and Clay says the Skrull Empire is taking complete possession of the planet. He then says he expects S.H.I.E.L.D. to cooperate, and his eyes become green. Captain America, Clay, and some others emerge in a ship in Earth's atmosphere. Captain America says that they have to get to the surface and warn the world of what is happening, and Clay says they'll stop at a space station that's close by. An alien on the Damocles base suddenly instructs the base to teleport everyone immediately, and they run around. In the helicarrier, Clay and the agents beside him reveal they are Skrulls, and Maria uses an emergency evacuation for all the humans that are still on the base. Clay, who is actually a Skrull, tells Maria that he likes her, and she could have held a position of power among the human slaves. Maria says she will print out a shirt that says Nick Fury is right when everything is over, and the Skrull eliminates her. They then realize that she isn't Maria, but a robot. Tony Stark lies on the floor as he is unable to move, and Queen Veranke, the Queen of the Skrulls, walks to him and says they couldn't have achieved their plan because he is the leader of the Avengers. She says it was easy to defeat the Avengers after taking Tony down, and the countdown reaches the end. An explosion occurs on the Damocles base while the alien devices that were placed in several places activate. Johnny Storm and the Thing are playing video games in the Baxter building, and the alarm suddenly goes off. Reed Richards goes to see what's wrong and sees Susan's eyes turn green. A strange light suddenly consumes the building as the timer elapses. Several agents on the helicarrier evacuate, and it explodes and falls into the ocean. Maria stands by the water and complains about how many times the helicarrier has been destroyed. Queen Veranke walks to some monitors and sees that a vehicle is approaching. She instructs a Skrull to divert them to Washington, and Tony realizes that the Skrull is Captain America. Captain America contacts Hawkeye and the others and says they should meet him in Washington. Wasp suggests they find people who will help them fight and says the people who agreed to help them aren't Skrulls. A laser suddenly hits their ship and they crash land. Miss Marvel removes the windscreen and they get out of the Quinjet. Hawkeye commends her for her landing, and Wasp points out that there's no one around. The Skrull ship flies above them. Several superpowered Skrulls alight from the ship and surround Hawkeye and the others, and a fight is about to ensue. The ship continues flying above them, and Miss Marvel says she'll apologize to Hawkeye for thinking he is a Skrull if they survive the fight. Hawkeye gives the signal, and the trio begin to fight. Nick Fury wakes up in his hideout, and Queen Veronki says she has enjoyed watching him fail. She pulls out a gun and prepares to shoot him, as she says that he lets his enemies know all his plans, and he and his secret warriors have played their part. Maria bursts into the room and begins shooting. Veronki jumps out the window, and Maria continues shooting at her. She walks to Fury and tells him she found out where he was 2 months ago, but decided not to tell anyone. She then briefs him on all that has happened and says something really bad happened to the Baxter building. She asks him if he has a plan, and Fury says Iron Man is the plan, but they have to save his life. Fury inputs a code that helps him remove Tony's helmet, and Tony gives him instructions on how to help him. He tells them to take out his heart and screams in pain as Fury removes it. Meanwhile, Miss Marvel fights the superpowered Skrull but gets knocked down. Hawkeye shoots his arrow at the Skrull and freezes, but gets knocked down by a laser beam. Wasp flies around as she fights, but the giant Skrull grabs her and electrocutes her. Miss Marvel tries to stand up, but the giant Super Skrull steps on her. They drag the heroes to the building, and Captain America asks them to take things easy. They realize that Captain America is the Skrull that was giving the Queen information, and Hawkeye gets angry. He frees himself and rushes to attack Captain America, but a Skrull hits him with energy from a hammer. A Super Skrull grabs a man with a camera and moves him to where Captain America is. Captain America instructs the man to broadcast what he is about to say, and he begins talking. People around the world watch the broadcast, and Captain America says the message is for all of humanity. He introduces himself to the world and says he has spent his life fighting for humanity, liberty, and the human right to live. He says an alien race has traveled across the galaxy to meet them and has contacted the governments of the world. He says the aliens aren't there to hurt them, but are to save them from themselves. Captain America says the Skrull have seen that their planet is on the brink of disaster, but have also seen their potential. He says the Skrull will succeed where they fail and will save the Earth by eliminating disease. He advises humanity to embrace the Skrulls because their ways aren't working. Fury works on his computer and says the Skrull are good at making plans. He asks Maria how she's doing, and she continues working on Tony's heart. Tony gives her instructions but suddenly passes out, and Maria doesn't know the last step. She takes a risk and places a random wire and places it in Tony's heart. Tony then wakes up and thanks her, and she asks what's their next plan. He says they are going to take out all the Skrulls on the planet. A Skrull jet lands in front of Hawkeye and the others, and Mockingbird emerges. Hawkeye realizes that she is a Skrull and says she's going to pay for what she's doing. Mockingbird says they are on Earth to help the humans, and says the humans who surrender themselves to the Skrull will live, while those who don't surrender will die. She walks to Captain America and says the people believe in him, so he will deliver the world to her. Captain America, who isn't a Skrull, emerges, and everyone is shocked as they see him. He arrives with Clay and the others and says the Skrull can't have their world. Mockingbird, who is actually Queen Veronki, says the world believes what they see, and that no one will believe him. Iron Man emerges as he attacks the Skrull with an energy beam that reverts them to their normal form. Veronki says it doesn't matter, and says no one will leave there alive. Lightning suddenly strikes the Skrull ship and the surrounding as Thor emerges. He lands beside Tony and Captain America and assembles the Avengers. Thor's lightning causes havoc to the Skrull ship, and it is forced to land on a body of water. He begins to attack the Super Skrulls, and Iron Man says he's happy that he returned. Miss Marvel knocks a Skrull down before it hits Hawkeye, and she asks him if they are even. Hawkeye says they aren't as he uses his arrows to apprehend a Skrull, and Miss Marvel hits it away. Wasp flies around as she shoots the Skrulls, and one of them grabs her, but she frees herself. Captain America fights his Skrull counterpart and says he lied to the Avengers using his face. The Skrull says he didn't do anything, and says Captain America did it himself. Veronki watches as everyone around her is fighting, and she contacts the Skrulls that's in the AIM facility. She instructs him to use the failsafe in order to teach their enemies a lesson. The Skrull activates the satellites that are in space, and the frequency begins affecting the humans. Thor sees what is happening, and Iron Man is protected because he is in his armor. He instructs Thor to destroy the satellites, and Thor flies into space and destroys the satellites. The heroes regain their strength and stand up as the satellite doesn't affect them anymore. They move toward the Super Skrulls, and Captain America pushes his counterpart but gets knocked down. Skrull Captain America says he cannot be defeated because he has Captain America's strength and skills. He uses his shield to attack Captain America, but misses as he says he knows all of Captain America's thoughts. Captain America says there's more to humanity than their strengths and weaknesses. He attacks the Skrull as he says that humans have spirits that are unbreakable, and destroys the machine that creates his shield. He says that humans never give up, and begins beating the Skrull. The heroes fight the Super Skrull around them, and Thor emerges from the sky. He uses his lightning to attack and knocks down the Skrull, and Captain America lands a knockout blow on the Skrull. Veronki watches what happens and tries to run away, but is surrounded. She is shocked and says the prophecy told them that the planet is for the Skrulls, and prepares to shoot. Miss Marvel then hits her with an energy blast and knocks her out. Later, Iron Man says his Skrull detection technology is being mass-produced, and says the Skrulls won't be able to hide. He says they will keep the Super Skrulls in prison until they know what to do with them. Miss Marvel says they saved the world from an invasion, but Captain America walks away. Thor says the Skrulls made them lose trust for each other, and says wounds from broken friendships and broken trust take longer to heal. The end. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos, and please make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.